Hello and welcome to this episode of FireDEV, a fireside chat with people in the industry. Today, my guest is Dipo Areoye. How are you doing, Dipo?
I'm doing great, Frahan. Could it be better?
Fantastic. Before the podcast, you were saying that you just, went to Spain, enjoying that summer weather over there. I'm guessing enjoying it a bit more than the UK summer or what
Oh,
the UK tried to offer.
yeah, 100%, man. Spain was really good weather. And when I left the UK, the weather was pretty good as well. And I came back today and it's just been raining the whole day. So,
It has, yes. The weather for the last week and a half to 2 weeks, it literally has just dropped back to good old British weather. What sort of temperature was you reaching over in Spain?
we were hitting around 28 degrees. Sometime, I think one day was 30. Um, and maybe average around 27, 26. Yeah,
So I'll say at the upper limits of comfortable.
100%. Yeah, it
Yeah,
always felt comfortable, 100%.
yeah, because obviously much hotter than that, yeah, it's hot, but it becomes just too uncomfortable. Like if it's 35, 40, how it
Oh,
gets
yeah.
in places like in Pakistan when I've been as a child, and it's say 40
Yes,
and above, it just gets to a point where you just don't want to do anything and you just want to be inside with the AC. Like outside,
100%.
it's just blistering.
100%. Yeah, man. So it actually rained a few days as well, which I think kept things a bit cooler. But
Okay, and
yeah,
but were those days cold, or was it just like still a warm day as well when it
nah,
rained?
yeah, there were no cold days at all. I wouldn't have made it because I didn't pack for anything cold. So shorts on top, t-shirt every day, really.
Fair enough. And whereabouts in Spain did you go?
I went to Ibiza, which is like the notorious party island.
Yeah.
But that was actually my first time there. I thought I'd actually missed the boat to go to Ibiza because I'm like 29 now. But it was my sister's birthday, and there was like a music festival going on, which is it's like I'm a piano South African music, which is like what I listen to a lot, and I was like, yeah, this is perfect. And
Okay.
yeah, kill two birds with one stone, celebrate a sister's birthday. Here's some good live music.
So now that you've been to Ibiza, is it the way they portray it in movies and the way everyone thinks about it? Because I haven't been, but I have an
Yes,
idea in my head.
yeah, I feel like I my vision for Ibiza was just party 24/7,
Mm.
but mostly more EDM, electronic music focused. And I think maybe because I went during a festival I'm a piano South African music focused festival, it was probably a dip. Had a completely different experience where there was a lot of African or Black British people around the city, and everything. Every event I went to was kind of tailored towards that type of crowd. So it felt like I was still kind of in London, but with better weather, better, partying scene, and a bit of Spanish. So yeah, it was a bit different from what I expected.
Okay, that's interesting. So yeah, in terms of traveling, you've traveled a fair bit, just as part of your career. So do you want to obviously introduce yourself and just do like a little brief overview of your what you're doing right now, and then we can dive into what you've done in the past, like going over to America.
100%. So yeah, I guess from a career perspective, I would describe myself as a software engineer. That's primarily what I've been doing over the past decade. And I think I've always been more focused on, consumer mobile app development, like working for consumer startups, building apps in my spare time. And that's kind of how I got into it. And most recently, I co-founded a consumer gaming startup in the fall of 2020. Did that for a couple of years, and I've kind of just been consulting consumer like startups since then, mostly mobile focused still. So I describe myself as if you want to get really nitty gritty, a mobile developer. But I also have a lot of experience with, front end web development and also, co-founding a startup. So I would say I'm a software engineer. Software entrepreneur is probably what would be the closest thing these days.
Yeah, I mean it's a a difficult one when somebody asks you what you do within software. You're kind of pushed to say something like web development, and within that
100%.
front or back end or maybe full stack, and then or like mobile. And the reality is, if you're doing mobile and you've been doing it for 5-10 years, you're gonna have touched on web as well, probably a
Hmm.
fair bit
Hmm.
with the way things are going with progressive web apps and web views and
Hmm.
everything like that. So it's you do end up becoming a jack of all trades nowadays, and you could easily as you've alluded to just switch between from doing mobile to doing web, or relearning or learning of particular frameworks, not too difficult. I feel like if you're going from one of them, because they're so similar now, to gaming, like just dedicated gaming, that's a bit different, or
Yes.
network programming, that's a bit different, or graphics, rendering programming, that's a bit different. But mobile and web is just so the reality is most things that people do, most of the time that people spend on their phones is to do with the internet anyway, and a lot of that is within either on the browser or on some sort of social app, which a lot of them use some sort of web views in the to display data anyway. So yeah, they are very closely related. So you mentioned that you do some sort of like startup consulting. Like what does that involve?
So when let's see. So consulting is really at a very basic level is you have some expert knowledge on something and somebody needs your advice, and sometimes might require you to do some implementation as well, get your hands dirty, or sometimes you're reviewing something that's been done already. And so at a very high level, I think when I started my journey into like startups, I've always been working in startups, but I guess when a pandemic hit and I co-founded my own startup, I kind of entered a network of loads of other founders, and being a software engineer by trade, I ended up seeing opportunities to just help other founders with like implementation details mostly, or sometimes just like conversations. So for example, in 20 around the pandemic, or 2021, 20 and the beginning of 2022, I spent a lot of time um working on Web3 projects, which is like the whole blockchain stuff, which isn't as cool anymore. But and a lot of other startups were trying to implement, Web3 type stuff, such as like deploying smart contracts or integrating NFTs onto their mobile apps, or allowing their existing customer base to like set up their own, Ethereum wallets. And this is kind of stuff I had a lot of experiencing, sorry. So I just ended up helping other founders with, sometimes it's just like, an hour or two conversation about like strategy. Sometimes it's writing code, like helping them spin up like a 2 week project. And most recently, I've just been like working back to my traditional roots as just as a mobile developer for, other consumers, for another consumer startup, as a software engineer, almost like an employee, honestly. But I guess the agreement is more of a contractual situation, and you get paid per hour. So yeah, consulting can be anything from a simple conversation to kind of contracting and carrying out a contract piece of work.
Yeah, yeah, because the reason I asked is, it can be, like you said, it can involve a broad set of skills, but also broad set of implementations. Or sometimes there's not even, like you said, there's not even any implementation. You're literally just having a conversation and
Yes.
steering, helping, the company steer the ship. And I think for a lot of people listening, and a lot of people out there, one, they can find that difficult to get those sort of roles, and we'll talk about that in a second. But also find it difficult to get their head around the idea that somebody might pay you to jump on like a Zoom call for an hour to
Mm-hmm.
for you to say that you should or shouldn't do this, and then that's it, like and that'll be the end of it, and then they'll go away happy. And then sometimes the
Mm-hmm.
payments are pretty substantial, or pretty decent for what people will think as not even like it is work. I
Mm-hmm.
know that you know that, and obviously people that are willing to pay for it know that as well. But for a lot of people, it can feel like that's not work, especially for people that are looking to hire someone. and
Mhm.
trying to get the most value out of the hire, in terms of the cheapest they can get, but not necessarily the highest output. They sometimes want you, I'm sure you've come across this as well, where they'll want you to jump on 5 to 10 different calls before they're even talking about signing a contract to do work, but you've already sunk in 10, 20 hours on a call, on calls, and potentially more hours doing research. Have you come across that before, where people are just want you to jump onto calls constantly, but they don't see that as work to be paid for?
Luckily, no. I think I've always worked with, I don't know, I think I've always worked with founders that have worked with contractors or consultants before, so they understand the value of time. But
Okay.
I guess when I was actually doing a startup, there was a period where we couldn't get things working, and we started doing more agency type work, I guess I'll call it, which kind of is still consulted in a way. And yeah, you would end up having to spend a lot of calls going back and forth and trying to understanding the requirements of the project before you actually get into the implementation details. But then even then, if you're we were really time conscious, so I think after the first two calls, I think a lot of things could just happen asynchronously, and usually you want to get some type of initial hourly contract in place. I have a lot of friends that also do this as well, so I know that what usually happens is you have one very extensive phone call, and maybe you'll have like a probationary period where hey, we'll just pay you for 20 hours for the first week and see how things goes, and if we want to keep working with you. And in that first 20 hours might be conversation, might be work, it might be code, it could be anything, right? But time is money, so you definitely don't want to be in a situation where you spend 20 hours of your time without being paid. Um, for both parties, really, because it kind of both probably means that you're speaking to the wrong person and you're both not really, or you're just given free labor, which isn't good. So yeah, I haven't had that situation, but I've had things close to that 100%.
Yeah, like and obviously when something's not getting physically produced, let's say if you're talking about a mobile app,
Right.
obviously if you're just going back and forth, some clients might not see that as work compared to coding, designing, and then
Exactly.
having the product saying, okay, you worked on a product, I'm going to pay you for X amount of hours, days, or a fixed price. But up till that point, there's no. But again, obviously, that's the sort of things I would say to anyone listening. Make sure you have the obviously the right and good clients, but also have it laid out on the table that
Hmm.
okay, I'm gonna do an hour or half an hour introductory call for free. That's fine. Anything beyond that will be charged at this rate. And I think yes, you may get less clients, but you'll get once you do start getting them, you'll get better clients, and they'll value the time as well. Because if they know that they're going to be charged per the hour, they're not going to spend 30 minutes talking about something that doesn't, you know, that isn't relevant to what the work is. Obviously, still be polite. I would say, don't be rude and say, we got to, just get into it. Obviously, do the introductory stuff. Ask them how they are. If there's something they mentioned about their family previously, maybe let's say their son had a hospital appointment. Ask about that, but then weave it back into the work side of things pretty quickly. And I would say that if you're a contractor or if you're the person hiring someone, do those things because that'll get the most out of the situation. So, how have you personally found doing consulting slash contracting? Because you've started your own companies before, so doing that versus working for other people but not being a permanent employee. How have you found it?
Honestly, it's not been too different from working with a startup as an employee in my experience, because I guess, um, like I said, I've kind of been working with, so just to pedal back a bit, I'd spent, let's say, the first 6, 7 years of my career always doing mobile development, whether it's as a contractor for startups or as an employee or as on my own under my own business, right? Like building mobile apps as a startup itself. And so a lot of my first contract or consulting situations was based on my experience as an Android developer or as an iOS developer. And a lot of the times it was implementation. It's always been implementation focused, really. So it's not been too different. The only difference is that um, the legal work, the legal paperwork type stuff. You're not an employee. You don't have employee type benefits. X, Y, Z. But really and truly, you're treated like you're part of the team, right? You have to deliver requirements. You're working with designers. You're working with product managers or the CEO to deliver requirements, right? Or a product. So it's actually not been that different. What you find is though, um, it's not as secure, right? Things change really quickly. You might go a while without not having a contract. Like now, for instance, I finished a contract 2 months ago, and I haven't actually actively been looking. But if I was trying to find another contract right now, it's not really clear exactly where it would come from, right? It's not like I have something stable. So I guess it's a different type of lifestyle. It's also not. I didn't actually intentionally become a consultant slash contractor. It was more of I was a co-founder of a company, a startup, and I needed to make money, right? And the best way to make money was, okay, let me just um, be a dev for hire in Web3 and crypto and blockchain and anything that I think other people need at the time. So it was kind of like a natural progression from being a co-founder, but not wanting to go into full-time employment. All right, what's the next best thing? Is you contract for an hourly rate, and which is usually quite high as well, right? So it gives you a bit. So it allows you to get cash a bit faster and in a bit more on your terms than being an employee and having to jump on endless meetings and do 6 rounds of interviews and X, Y, Z, right? So I guess I found it very natural, to be honest. And I think that's because I'd kind of been already doing this stuff for 10 years for startups already as well. I've even hired contractors myself. I've worked alongside contractors or consultants. So it's just like another part of the pie that I've been in for the last 10 years.
Okay, I know a lot of people out there listening will, want to know more detail about how you go about and how best you found to go about
Hmm.
getting, some of these roles as a contractor, either doing, let's say, a 3 month contract and you're a front end developer, or doing, 5 1 hour sessions with a company which will, probably on average per hour worked pay more than even the 3 month contract, which anyone that's looked into contracting pays, much better. I know that's the sort of stuff I do as well. Like it pays a lot better than a permanent employee. Obviously, you don't get company benefits like you said, sick days paid, I mean holidays, if the company has other benefits as well, you don't get them.
Hmm.
However, you do have more flexibility, and that's all priced in. So if you're the sort of person that won't take a sick day, that for the hot, obviously depending on the sort of contract you've got, if it's a more long running contract, you probably can work out with your manager that you'll work extra hours, or let's say a day or two on the weekend here and there, and if you need a week off to go on holiday, you can still get paid because you've made the hours up per se. So like depending on the company's rules and how your manager is, you could effectively get around some of those perks that are only given to permanent employees, but that's obviously on a case by case basis. But yeah, going back to my
Hmm.
question, how have you found best to get these roles? Because that's the sort of thing, there's
Right.
job boards to go and get a job, and even
Yeah.
contract roles, but to get a 1 hour consulting position for a startup, like, is there a job board for that?
Yeah. I think a lot of if you're trying to figure out, oh, how can I become a consultant in, let's say, mobile development or AI, right, which is kind of hot right now. Let's say AI, for example, is a good example where a lot of companies and entrepreneurs are trying to find out how they can leverage AI to, improve their product offering. So, and let's say you are an AI expert and you're like, oh, how could I find these opportunities to be a consultant? I think it comes down to your network as the very first step. If you don't have the network, then you kind of have to do more marketing. And what that means is, I think personally for me, I was lucky where I'd come from a strong network of, I was from the Y Combinator founder network, which is really strong, well connected. There are internal forums where I could source a lot of my work. Also, living in the Bay Area, San Francisco, for a while, I just know so many different founders and entrepreneurs, and I'm part of so many different Slack groups and WhatsApp groups where I'd always sourced my work from that initially, which is my initial network. But then if you don't have that initial network, you just have to be a good marketer, right? You have to go to where your customers are, which is gonna be social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, or even Reddit, to be honest. It's like you just have to become an expert in those spaces, right? So I have friends that publish blogs, articles on Twitter, or they build in public if they're developers on Twitter, and they get their I guess deals from that way. I even have a friend that, just on LinkedIn, he built like a keyboard app like years ago, specializing in GIFs, I think it was, and he would every now and then, just because he was an employee, but just because he was an employee of a reputable company on his LinkedIn, competitors would contact him for like 1 hour phone calls for consulting that way. But I personally wouldn't really chase, the being someone that can make money through 1 or 2 hour phone calls every now and then, because honestly, they don't happen that frequently unless you're in a very niche, field. But I would say definitely just publicize what you do, tap into your network. If you're already a software developer with some experience, you let your network know that you're looking for opportunities to contract slash consult. I even have friends that have worked for companies and then I just renegotiated from being an employee to a contractor, right, for tax efficient purposes. And so it's like your network is the first step, and just publicizing what you do, but just ensuring that you actually have the skills is also, because if you have the skills, that means you've been doing this already and you've already worked for people, and those that could be your network, right? People you've worked with in the past, for in the past, they will know people that are looking for, especially for a developer or software engineer. It's like always start from your network. I would always ask people, have you tried your network? Have you? It's the same with anything. Like if you're trying to get a job at a company, you want to first figure out if anyone you know in your network, and it might not be first degree, it might be second degree, is working there. And I think it's the same way if you're trying to contract or consult. It's like tap into your first and second degree network. There should always be at least one opportunity in there alone if you've already been doing the work in that industry. Hope that
Yeah, I
answers the
mean,
question. Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely some good advice because I I know a lot of people that ask these questions. They're like 21, 22, just come out of university or just coming out, and but they're wanting to do these sort of contract or consulting positions. And the thing is, even if somehow you do have the knowledge, which a lot of it comes with experience that you won't have, even if you do somehow have the knowledge, nobody's going to really trust you.
Hmm.
To say, what, we're gonna pay you by the hour to sit
Hmm.
here and give us advice, and we're gonna, take that advice and potentially action it to
Hmm.
steer our business. Like when you start putting it like that, a black and white, it kind of makes sense that okay, you're gonna hire someone that is 30, 35, 40, 50. Obviously, the older you get, with the more years you have, the more likely is somebody to say, okay, I'll pay this person 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 pound an hour potentially, and hire them for 5, 10 hours and spend thousands of pounds or even tens of thousands, depending on how you know successful you are as a consultant, and then use that advice to steer my ship. So yeah, it is definitely one of those things. Get the advice, build the network up, and obviously if you can build that up when you're younger, at different companies, is it is best. But like, there's two things I want to unpack from what you were saying. The first thing is that friend of yours that you said worked at a company and they created a keyboard for GIFs, and but then competitors would effectively contact him to get advice. I'm guessing that would have been conflict of interest. So was he keeping that on the down low, or did he never give that advice? how
Oh
did
no,
that work?
this was years after he'd worked there, so there was no conflict of interest
Oh,
anymore.
okay. So he wasn't
Yeah,
when
yeah,
he was
yeah.
there. I thought he was
No, no,
when
no.
he was actually there. They were messaging
Yeah,
him saying, can you
yeah, oh,
give us
definitely not.
an hour call?
Definitely not, definitely not. And I don't think he ever even took the calls, but I think they were straight up saying, "Hey, we'll pay you $400 an hour for one $300 for one phone call, which would probably take an hour long." And I'm just trying to emphasize that if you're doing the good work and it's public, you would probably get inbound requests for, you know, knowledge. And a lot of times it's not packaged in a way where it's like a clear contract or a consulting thing. People might just DM you on Twitter or LinkedIn. But everything starts from somewhere. But I think going back to your original thing, I think if you were 21 or 22, fresh out of college, you really what you want to do is you either want to be building your skills up or making money or doing both ideally, which is why you just go to work for companies that are doing really cool shit. I think when we was in college, me and my friend, same friend I'm talking about, and a couple others, we built wait, what did we do? We built an app for ourselves and everyone in our university knew about it. And then other societies, which are just like other students that have a bit of funding, would pay us to build their apps or websites, right? And those were essentially our first contracts, right? And that's just how everything goes. You just start from where you are. So if you're 21, 22, and you just solve problems for people around you, right? And those are your contracts, those are people you console. And from doing good work with them, that's how you get your other opportunities. So you have to just play with the cards you're being dealt and not get too focused on trying to capture all the big opportunities, like you said, competing with people that have 10 to 15 years experience, because there's problems to be solved everywhere. And all consulting is just exchanging information to help someone solve their problem. So yeah, I think anyone could get into consulting or contracting. I guess it just depends on what your objectives are. I still think if you're fresh out of college, I don't think you want to be going into consulting straight away. I think, yeah, you'd want to be either building your own startup or working for other companies or working with people that are going to give you the skills and money. Because I think, like you said, right, you're not going to charge that much as a student consultant, but you can still get a six-figure salary at, a tech startup or XYZ. So yeah, just figure out what you want and why. But if it's about problem solving or consulting, contracting, there are probably opportunities for that at all stages of your career, especially within tech. I remember when we were in second year of college, and we used to just like find we needed to build apps, right? So we needed to find graphic designers, and we didn't have the budget for like. Actually, we used to use Dribble. Okay, yes, for example, there actually are platforms to contracts, right? So there's stuff like Gigstar, Dribble.com if you're a designer, Fiverr.com for like development or like no code solutions. So there are all these platforms where you can find work or offer your services, which we used to use early on in our stages. And then you build relationships from there. You build a portfolio from there, and you can start to increase your rate. So I think what I'm trying to say is, yeah, you don't actually have to wait to get too much experience to be a consultant or contractor. You just need to know a bit more than the person that's asking for help, right? So it's kind of like people skills as well. You need to just know how to connect with people and sell them on your abilities, right? And it's not necessarily about lying. It's just presenting yourself as someone that can find a solution, even if that means you don't have it at this very moment, right? For example, I might be a mobile developer and I might know a founder that's looking for someone to help him with some AI solution, right? And I can be like, hey, listen, I'm a software engineer. I can work with you for a week, here's my rate. Let's try see if we can get something done, right? And he may or may not go for it depending on how I've offered it and what expectations I've set. But the goal is still to solve the problem, and that's what we all are, whether we're software engineers, designers, product managers, we're just problem solvers. And I think that's just the best way to present yourself when you're coming fresh out of college or even in college.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. Like when you are, starting your career, either put the work in and work at a company, just get like just some sort of permanent job, or
Yes.
do your own start. Like if you want to go down there, obviously you got to look at your situation. Everyone's situation is different. So if you have people that are depending on you, maybe you're in the unfortunate situation where you've got one parent, and you're supporting them, you're helping them, so you've got a lot of responsibility on you. It's one
Hmm.
of those things that obviously it's, let's say, sad and unfortunate, something like that, but you've got to identify that is your situation, and then not do something, I would say, silly, and be like, okay, I'm just gonna start a business, not work, do anything else where I'm bringing in money that I require. It might be a matter of, okay, I'll get a job 9 to 5, 5 days a week, and then in the evenings I'll spend a couple of hours every day, and then weekends, that's fine. But obviously, identify your situation. But then there'll be listeners out there that'll be in a situation where they might come from a well-off family, and they can just 6 to 12 months not work, and they'll be
Hmm.
fine.
Hmm.
Obviously, if that's the situation, then yeah, like be a bit, maybe a bit more picky with the roles that you go into. Maybe even start trying to do some sort of contracting a lot earlier than you would have usually, or your own startup. So
Hmm.
identify your situation. That's something that you will know, and if you're being honest with yourself, you will be able to figure out, and then
Hmm.
base it around that, and then just constantly work on that. I remember there's a saying, Bill Gates has said it, and a few other people have said it over the years, like overestimate what you can do in a year, but grossly underestimate what you can achieve in 10 years. And that's so true when you're
Facts.
looking at stuff like this. Let's say starting a business, you think, oh, I'm going to do this in like the next 6 to 12 months, probably won't pan out. But then you look back 10 years later or 5 years later, and you think, if I had just done these few things consistently, it would have grown to this level. And you know that's something worth bearing in mind, is time, it can be an ally if you make it and let it be. So it's,
100%.
it's an interesting one. And then the other thing I wanted to unpack was that you mentioned that you was at Y Combinator. Obviously you just briefly mentioned that, but Y Combinator, from what I've read and heard, it is more, like it's harder to get. I think I read a stat that it's harder to get to Y Combinator, just as a percentage of the amount of people they have enroll versus the amount of people that apply, is harder than like Harvard, for example. And like, how was that process getting into it, and what was your startup idea there?
Yeah, so yeah, Y Combinator is a startup accelerator, and they appeal to really early stage founders to help you get your startup off the ground. And yes, I think I don't really like the idea of comparing how hard it is to get into something to something else, because I think the issue is it's really surface level. It's just basically based on how many applicants and how many were accepted. That's how we like to determine how hard something is, right? But I think that's just because of that's much more down to marketing. So really prestigious programs are going to probably attract loads of applications, and they might not be able to accept all of them, right? But I think if you have a high quality application, I think you'll probably do well with Y Combinator. So for example, we applied to YC um, in 2020, and our idea was basically pre-product, right? Our idea was to help, and I think you've had Stephen on this podcast. He was part of my co-founded team, so he may have already spoken about this. But our idea was to help music producers get paid, whilst also help people make music through a mobile app. And the idea was that we would create an app that would allow you to put these musical blocks together that are created by other musical producers, and then allow you to create your own musical beats. And it was actually based off an idea of which our third co-founder had built in college, but we kind of wanted to like figure out a way to make this profitable, and that's kind of we introduced the part of, oh, you can get paid by selling your beats in these little blocks through our app. And the idea was basically they didn't YC didn't really like it, so during the actual interview process, they asked us to figure out other ideas, and we ended up getting in on another idea, which we also came up with after 24 hours from the first interview. which was actually about, it was during the pandemic, and we'd had our first interview, and they were essentially like, "Oh yeah, what other ideas do you have?" And I kind of mentioned how we were thinking of um, providing a single API for all of my gaming, for everybody's gaming data. And the idea behind that was that we play loads of different video games. I'm a gamer. My co-founder was a gamer as well. And it was a pandemic. Everyone was playing games. And if you're a developer and you want to build a gaming application, which is like an application that needs, like, let's say I wanted to build a way to like just look at all my gaming information, like how much kills I have on Call of Duty or how many goals have I scored in FIFA. We were frustrated that all this information was locked behind like the game's services, and our goal was to provide an API that can kind of basically give access to other developers to build applications on top of my gaming data, which is kind of like what exists already for the financial world. Like I can use a single API to access people's banking information, which allows me to then build all these cool banking apps like budgeting apps or TransferWise, XYZ. We wanted something similar for gaming. So that was our initial idea we pitched. And it didn't really make any sense, but one of the judges or the people on the panel, Kevin Lin, was a co-founder of Twitch. He kind of liked it, told us to have a second call, and then we kind of developed the idea into, oh, what we actually wanted to do was just build a way to um, build a social competitive platform to allow me to compete with my friends around the games I play. And we focused on Warzone, which was popping at the time. It was the pandemic. Everyone was playing Call of Duty Warzone, and I was in San Francisco. My friends were in London. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we could just all compete with each other? Kind of like how Fantasy Premier League works, based off like how well we're doing in our Warzone games, because we can't actually play together at the same time. And so we kind of pitched that in our second interview, and we kind of got rejected. But then we kind of reapplied, which is not normal. Like we just decided to build it and reapply again in the same week, and then we kind of got accepted that way. And I think one cool thing about YC, which people don't understand, is it's not too structured. It's really like you can apply at any time, and it's really based on. And I think this is what, going back to the original thing, which is you were saying how YC is really hard to get into, like Harvard, right? Because I think that comes from because YC has like a 1.5 to 2% acceptance rate. But I think that's just a lot of people do not understand how to apply. And the YC application process is really all about conciseness and clarity of thinking. And if you can communicate your ideas clearly, plus a bit of like reputation, like, okay, who are you? What have you done in the past? I think you would have a good shot at least getting to the interview stage. And then the interview is really all just about um, kind of luck, really, but also how prepared you are and how willing you are to come up with new ideas on the fly, which is, I think, what we were really good at. We weren't too attached to one idea. We knew that, you have to have many ideas, and YC really bet more on the founder than the idea as a pre-seed stage accelerator. So yeah, like we just showed, I think in that, when we got rejected the second time, we, even in the rejection, it kind of was, it was kind of communicated that we could reapply. So we're like, oh, let's just take this opportunity to build something, reapply, and show that we're serious. And third interview, which is kind of abnormal, we did get accepted in, and by then we had no, we weren't really ready, to be honest, because we were still working full time. We didn't really fully understand what we were building, but hey, we were in, and we were in to build a gaming product, which was funny because a month ago we were talking about how passionate we were about building a music product. And that's just how flexible you have to be at that stage, really. But yeah, I think YC is definitely hard to get into 100%. We were very fortunate. I don't really think it's, comparing it to Harvard is fair. I feel like it's more about, honestly, if you have a lot of grit and you have an evidence of getting things done, not necessarily in startups, like one of the key questions in the YC application is, give us an example of a time you've hacked something or achieved something like kind of extraordinary, and that I don't think any of us had a technical answer to that question. And then if you just show that the products or the business idea that you have, you understand what problem you're solving, you understand the customers, you have a clear idea of how you're going to acquire your customers, why your customers are going to choose you over your competitors, and you have a working MVP, or maybe you're just pre-idea, but you've shown that you've spoken to these customers. I think you've already done like 90% of what a lot of people that apply to these programs haven't done. Right, a lot of people apply to these product, which is fair, which is we've all made mistakes, but a lot of people apply to YC, I think, without really answering the questions on the applications and doing them concisely, or even just building a simple MVP, which doesn't have to be code. I think you just have you by doing just these little things, you make your application stand out more than the other like 90%. Still going to be hard to get into, but I feel like I wouldn't want to scare people away from applying to YC, because even I think doing the application itself helps you with your business, right? It's actually a really good application. And it's not long either. It's like, I think, 2 pages max.
Yeah, it's one of the things. If you take it seriously, you start, and when you start filling it out and you're thinking about it, you start to realize, okay, these areas of my business or business idea aren't that well formed yet. Like there's I've got to write about it's unique selling point or market fit or demographic, whatever it might be. You might realize, okay, you've got an idea. It might be an amazing idea, but you haven't thought about this particular aspect of it. And it might be demographic. So you might have a company that's about, I don't know. Let's think of something. Generative AI. Models for games
Hmm.
for artists. Obviously your demographic isn't a 10-year-old if it's for
Hmm.
artists that make games, but likewise it's probably not for a 50-60-year-old. It's probably 25 to 35 or 25 to 40, and then
Hmm.
narrowing it down further as well, which particular types of games. So what within the gaming industry, and the types of companies as well. So when you start thinking about that, you can really refine your business model, your approach, and your overall business in general. So at
Hmm.
YC, because you mentioned that about Stephen, and that's Stephen Sawale.
Hmm.
For anyone that's wondering, he was on FireDEV, and that was episode 16. And that's actually how me and Dipo connected, was through Stephen. And so whilst he was at YC, was you working on the same projects that he was working on, and are you part of his startup Icon that he's working on right now?
So when you say projects, do you mean, yeah, okay. So I was living with Stephen, and we all applied, me and a third co-founder, Palibo, we applied under the same company called Icon. Yeah, it was called Icon. Was it called Icon? I don't even remember anymore, man. Yeah, it was called Icon. Initially, we actually, so Icon's always been the name of our entity. And yeah, Icon was the name of the gaming product. We then pivoted into, I think, productivity and then into finance. But we always kept under the name of Icon, which is actually Steve's idea. He liked that name. After 3 years, I've since, gone a different way. So as a Palibo, but Stevens kept Icon, which is not the same entity. Sorry, it's not the same product right now, but that's the same company that we were working, and we were all co-founders of, and we all had 1/3 of at the time. So yeah, me, Steve, and Palibo, we were working on this. We were working on the same things for like 2 or 3 years. Let's say from 2020 to, I guess, the end of 2021, I assume. Sorry, maybe 2020. Sorry, mid 2022. Yeah, that's when stuff ended. So about 2 years. And I think
Okay.
what was your last question, second question?
uh,
Or did I answer it?
the last one I can't remember. Yeah, because we was talking about, obviously YC, you working, and yeah, it was I mean, you've kind of already answered it about are you
Okay, well,
still at Icon. I think you said no. Like
okay,
what? So
well.
why did you part ways?
Yeah, I think so. We've been doing this for so the normal path of the ideal path of a startup or YC or VC startup is we applied to YC with an idea for Icon, and the goal was always to raise a seed round, right? Which will essentially give us enough money to really pursue the specific idea. But I think we never really got enough traction with any of our ideas um, to warrant raising that second bigger round. And I think after 2 years of pivoting, trying different ideas, I think naturally we kind of started to become misaligned, and time has gone on now. I think I had to move back to London. I kind of wanted to pursue Web3 crypto at that time, I remember, and Stephen wanted to pursue a different space, and Pablo had a different thing. So it's kind of just like after 2 years of not really hitting the goals we wanted to, we decided to just pursue things in a different way. So yeah, it was a tough moment. Honestly, it was tough. It was hard because we'd all started this together. Um,
And
but
the
yeah,
fact
we
that
had
he's
that.
obviously kept the name as well, I'm guessing that must have been, tougher because it's not like you both, all three of you parted ways and he started some other company called
Mhm,
something totally different, even though he might be different to what you did at YC and the
mhm, mhm.
ideas that you had. The fact that he still bears the same name, I'm guessing that added to the difficulty as well.
No, I don't think so. I think that's
Oh, did it
actually,
not?
it's actually, no, I feel like the name was never really, I don't think no one really cared about the name. I think Steve cares about the name. That name meant a lot to him. If it was probably me, that name Icon probably wouldn't have still been the same name. We would have probably changed, every time we changed the product, we would probably would have changed the name. So no, the name doesn't really mean anything. I think it's actually cool to see the name still there because it's good to know that all that work we put in 2 years ago is still alive, right? It's still I can still point to someone and say, oh yeah, that's what we were, that's what we were part of. Um, so no, I think the hardest part was really just the conversation deciding, oh, okay, how are we going to do this? Like, who's going to keep the entity of the company itself, right? Who's in the best position to take this thing forward?
Are you
Or are
talking
we going to
about
shut
the
up?
legal entity of the company, the
Exactly.
registered
Yeah.
entity?
Yeah. 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 I think that
Okay.
was probably the harder thing to discuss. That definitely
Yeah,
took
it
like
is. Like
a
it's
week
kind of
to
like
figure
who's
out.
keeping the baby almost, who's keeping the kid.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what we had probably our main arguments over at the time, or disagreements probably, but we came to an agreement actually quite quickly. And I think this is another thing that YC are very opinionated on, which is ensuring you have co-founders and ensuring that it's set up in a way where decisions can be made quickly, right? And I think the lucky thing about us was because we were three co-founders, there was always a way to go forward, right? Because there's always going to be a majority and a minority, and a majority is always going to go forward. So I think in the end, me and Ipalibo had decided to pursue Web3 under a separate entity because we didn't really have a single YC fundable idea. While Steve had been already working on Steve, which is just currently kind of what he's still working on. Wanted to continue working on this productivity app, which looked like it was the most positioned to be funded at the time. And that's kind of how we decided to just go our separate ways.
Okay, so you hear about in the startup world, all the time. There's founders, they start a company, there's some sort of falling out, or somebody parts way, and the company becomes worth hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars. And then there's obviously arguments and calls, people taking each other to court, etc., etc. Like, was it basically a handshake kind of thing, or was it like, here's a contract, or here's some documentation that we've all signed and agreed to, stating that, okay, it is now Stevens, I have no involvement in it, or I've still got a percentage? Like, how did that go about, to try and keep it as professional and honest as possible?
I think it was definitely both verbal and eventually the paperwork also had to follow what we'd agreed to verbally. But I think what people don't understand is that at the early stages, you're really not really you're not really arguing over millions of dollars, right? Like nothing's the company isn't even really worth anything realistically. Like it's not like you can go to liquidate at any point in time, right? Yes, you've raised money. Yes, there's a valuation on paper, but we all knew that, hey, listen, really 99.9% of the work is ahead of us. And whatever we agree on, it just has to make sure that um, the entity has the best chance of success, right? So that wasn't really the problem. I think I think the biggest cause of concern was we who was since we all three of us couldn't agree to go in the same direction, which happens so frequently. What is the best direction for us to go in, and which direction gives the best chance for success for the company, right? And we were all really good friends as well, which helped, I guess. So when we did go the way we went, I remember I spoke to Palibo at the time because me and Palibo were once leaving. We're like, you know what? Steve has so much conviction over this specific idea. We don't really have that right now. We want to explore. Let's give everything up for Steve and put him in the best position to raise that second round if he needs to, because we'd kind of exhausted like two years of just funding. So at that point, it was literally honestly if in another scenario, we probably would have been best to probably just shut the company down and start a new company. So really, we weren't really fighting over tangible assets at that point. It was probably just more of possibilities, and I feel like we agreed on the way in which gave the most possibility for success, and we made peace of that with that as
Oh,
well.
okay. And
And I did speak to it's funny, like at that time I was speaking to other founders who had gone through the exact same situation also in YC as well. So we
mhm.
had advice. We made sure like we were doing the best things legally as well and stuff. So thankfully, um it was yeah, it was like a decision which had a lot of I wasn't really worried about it.
So is that something that YC specifically helps provide? Contact with other, past founders and YC members that have gone through whether it's good, bad, or neutral, events, so you can basically, get some advice and get through things, or was that just kind of contacts you made and you ended up getting advice? Like, how did that work?
I think really all I see is a very strong, high quality network of founders and ex-founders who are now probably advisors, partners, mentors, and it's literally a platform that allows you to communicate with those founders. Like think of like a forum. So yeah, and when we did YC, which is a program, which is a 3 month program, because you do YC right, which is only 3 months, and then you're part of the network platform for life, kind of like a university alumni type thing. Imagine it like that. I was like when you're at university, you have access to all the little tools and stuff. But imagine with YC, you never lose access to the website, like the login, the private network. So yeah, we'd always had contacts. There's been like people post articles on all these things. People ask questions all the time. Luckily, I'd had friends that had already been through YC that I'd known personally, and my closest friend actually invited the part to YC had went through the exact same situation where things wasn't really working out from a company standpoint, and they went to go their separate ways, and they had to figure out who was going to leave the company, who was going to stay on. So I spoke to him initially, and I think he's the only one I really spoke to, honestly. And yeah, everything else was just common sense and logic, right? And I guess Steven, who was staying on the company, he would have reached out to the YC partners themselves as well to just let them know what's going on. But like I said, because we were still so early stage, there wasn't really too much to fight over, honestly. It wasn't too much paperwork or like I don't know, like it's not like some $1 million corporations being torn apart. It's literally just okay, who's carrying on, and like I said, 99% of the work is ahead of you. So it's not like oh you get to keep the company and you've made all this money. No, you just have to keep doing all the work. And who's leaving? And then yeah, you're always part of YC, so you can always just like type in a forum and get some questions and answers. None of us had to do that, I guess, because we already had people that we knew personally who you meet in your day to day of doing of being in the network, which is through answering questions or in the Slack or I don't even know, man. But yeah, just think of it like a big forum where if I have a question, I'll probably go to search it and someone's already asked the question before and X, Y, Z. That's how I made most of my network connections. Especially because we was doing YC during the pandemic, which meant we never actually met anyone in real life. So everything was done through Zoom calls and Slack and forum chat.
Yeah, I remember, Stephen mentioning that it was, I think the first ever YC that was fully virtual due to, COVID and all the lockdowns and everything that was going on. So that's obviously, a very interesting one. And it's still good that they, continued it instead of saying, there were events that were, that usually would have gone on every year in other, industries and other fields, and they just cancelled during those couple of years, saying that okay,
Hmm.
because we can't do it in the way that we would usually do it, we're not going to do it at all, and we're not, and it's as a result it's not been the same. Some of those
Hmm.
events haven't, whereas I feel like YC, because they pushed through it, and they were like,
Hmm.
okay, right now we can't do in-person meetups, it's just not a possibility, but
Hmm.
we can still do online ones,
Hmm.
and let's explore that, let's see how that goes, and then we can go back to physical ones as well. I feel like
Hmm.
that sort of staying power has you know greatly benefited them, because
Hmm.
they were still there year in
Hmm.
year out, regardless of the format. So obviously that was a big one as well. So doing all of this startup stuff, YC, Mumbo, university with Steve, and Dice as well, where he was doing some video games. Um, do you and obviously all, because obviously at YC you're looking at a few different projects. Do you ever miss the startup days and feel like starting another company again instead of working for companies that are established, whether they're just started or whether they're big? Do you ever feel like just doing it again, or is that just not for you?
Yeah, that's a very good question, man. I feel like 100% I do miss it, and I feel like I'm essentially looking for any opportunity to get back into just starting my own thing right now.
Once you get that bug,
Obviously,
it's
you
hard
have
to
to,
get out of it.
yeah, 100%. And I feel like it's a shame. It's not even a shame. I think that's life. Like you have the lessons you've learned, and you realize, damn, I could have done things a lot differently. And you kind of just want to take those learnings into that next thing you're going to do. So I definitely see myself doing it again. Maybe not specifically YC, but doing a startup again, building a company, building a team, 110%. Yeah. I think going through the experience has probably, and then also taking this long break. I think it's been a year now. Yeah, since we parted ways with Icon. Taking a year off has really given me the time to reflect on why I want to do things and how I would do things differently. And also, honestly, just giving me the energy again, because I think nearer the end, I probably started to lose my energy, got a bit burnt out. So yeah, 100% would do it again. Will do it again, and and that's mostly from the experiences, which when I look back were mostly positive. To be honest, it was just really hard.
Yeah, it is difficult doing your own. It's one of those things that unless you try it, your perception of it, I would say, it's totally incorrect. Like there's a lot of things in life that you have an idea of what it's going to be like, and you may never have tried it. And some things you're pretty accurate, or people in general have a pretty accurate idea of what it's going to be like. But starting a business and doing a startup, it's one of those things that people have this idea of it's going to be this glorious thing, and you're going to be start making loads of money, and you're just going to be at home chilling, for example. And it's like this, and I think an element of it, the remote aspect of it, people
Mhm.
realized that's not all it's cracked up to be for a lot of people. during COVID, because I had friends that would, because I work remotely and I've done my own startups as well. I remember friends would
Mhm.
say to me, you know, you're lucky because you just work from home. And, you know, I prefer working from home than in the office anyway. So it's not like I was doing a startup from home, but I preferred being in the office. So it was still easier for me. But I used to say it's not, you know, as easy as you think it is. And I
Mm.
remember when COVID hit and the lockdowns happened, I remember them messaging me and them saying, you know, I don't know how you've just been doing it all these years because I can't stand it after like 2 weeks. So, so that's definitely one thing that a lot of people realized it isn't everything that it's cracked up to be, and I think some
Mhm.
people realize it is what they want, and
Mhm.
going into the office isn't what they want. So that's also the flip side of it, and there's so many other things to do with having your own startup that you just don't realize until you actually have a go. So you mentioned before that one of the things that you wanted to do and take like I'm gonna say icon because that's why what the entity was called whilst he was at YC was stuff like Web3 blockchain and that sort of field. Is that still something you're exploring, and what's your opinions around that space right now in 2023?
Yeah, I no longer actively pursuing Web3 and the blockchain. I guess I'm still part of some WhatsApp group with other founders and just talk about things from like a maybe from more entertainment perspective. But in terms of building a startup, it wouldn't be in the Web3 or blockchain. I guess I don't really. I guess one mistake I made, not even a mistake. I think going forward, I've learned that if I was to do this again, probably wouldn't be. I wouldn't probably focus too much on the technology or the hype cycle, what's trending on a macro scale. I'm more focused on just specific problems now and people that I would like to solve for, and maybe arbitrages or like, opportunities, ways. I think now I'm more focused on things on a more, just on a smaller scale, things that can, how can I say this? I think one problem we had, right? I think it's better easier to say like this. One problem we had when we were doing Icon, for instance, was we found it really hard to get our ideas off the ground, and that usually because they weren't really founded from from a focus of a problem or from a customer that we actually knew, or we weren't the customers ourselves. So we always found ourselves chasing the customers, right? And i.e., if we were building, I think when we first kicked off, um, let's say when we first one of our after the Warzone Call of Duty thing, we had an issue there where we didn't even get access to the APIs because they were private. So we had to use like a unsupported API, and essentially our product wouldn't couldn't take off because we didn't actually have control over the data itself. So we ended up pivoting to the social space, which was kind of social gaming and kind of what was hot at the time with Clubhouse and the pandemic. And since then, we just found ourselves always trying to build products that we thought would be cool, but we never knew how to distribute them or grow them. And the same thing with, I think that's the same problem we had with crypto and Web3, where everybody loved the idea of it, but when it came to who's actually going to use the product and why they would use it over an alternative, that was the issues we kept having, right? So I remember we built like an NFT platform to allow artists to create NFTs, right? But we didn't actually know anyone that needed it. And people did use it, but it wasn't growing fast enough compared to our competitors because realistically we didn't really know who we were building this for and why, and we were horrible marketers. Um, and I think that's why I'm definitely now more wary of just looking at Web3 for the sake of it. I still hold some NFTs and crypto, so I still like for maybe the most sentimental value or maybe the community that the community I've been able to join through crypto, I'm still engaged in. But in terms of, oh, would I build a crypto startup right now? Probably not, because I don't see any problems or opportunities that are more tailored towards my strengths. Um, but no, so no.
Yeah, that's the problem with a lot of, founders out there is that they'll see this new technology, whether it's Web3 blockchain, or obviously that was like the I say 2016 to 2020 hype. Now is the AI hype as well, ChatGPT, Bard, and all, and the other tools as well. It's not to say that these technologies aren't groundbreaking and can't be revolutionary, because they probably will, but just to say, okay, there's this new hot technology, blockchain, Bitcoin, AI. I'm just going to create a business idea out of it. There's so many AI startups that are AI, and especially blockchain startups that I see, that I look at it and I think there's no reason you can't do that with Web 2. Like, there's nothing
Mm,
about the business model that Web 2 can't accomplish. And again, that's not a dig at the business idea. It might be a good idea, but it's just, why are you doing it in Web 3? Partly, it's partly because there's more funding around there. And I'm seeing companies that are getting funded, six, seven figures, that have no product. The idea, when I look at it, it's just like, okay, you've got an idea for some blockchain game, but why do you need the blockchain? In there, like, if they had removed the blockchain aspect of it and the Web 3, nobody would have funded them. Just purely on the game idea itself. And I think that's obviously a huge issue. And yeah, there's going to be some winners that will get a bunch of funding, whilst the funding is still available right now, and that'll either do an exit or they will actually make a success of it. Like how we happened with the dot-com bubble, because there are still companies, obviously, like Amazon, that are still around from that era. They got through it
mhm.
and they survived. But there's companies now that you just look at it and you think you don't need that technology. Instead of saying, like you said, is there a particular problem you're trying to solve? you know is there people that actually want your product? Or even, okay, there's this new technology, and there's an actual idea that really makes sense for AI, for example. It's gonna just elevate the game compared to doing it traditionally. That's fair enough. But when you're just trying to make the latest technology fit with some idea that you've got, and then, worse than that is just not even letting the idea adapt. Because obviously, if you say, I'm going to use AI, I'm going to use blockchain, and I want it for this particular idea, like making a mobile game, but you're not going to let that idea shift at all relative to the technologies, what you just end up getting is a game that probably won't be the best, that will use technologies that you don't understand and won't utilize them well, and you'll probably end up throwing around a bunch of buzzwords that sounds cool on paper, but when you break it down, it doesn't really do what you're actually promoting that it does.
100%, man. 100%. And I think these are just lessons that you learn as a first time founder.
Hmm.
And you learn as a first time founder, you don't really have the luxuries of these bigger companies to over experiment and just try things for the sake of it. It's just always easier to be focused. And going back to the wise application, it's like just being focused on the problem, a customer, what's new about your solution, and digging at that to unlock more and more insights to eventually build a bigger competitive advantage, as opposed to just hoping that a new technology is going to be your advantage and going to allow you to grow and distribute. I think it's a really hard way to go as as a first time founder. I think, second time founders or bigger companies or people with more resources and time and luxuries can be more technology focused. But yeah, I think these are just the learnings that I've had for myself.
Oh yeah. And whilst doing whilst working at all the companies that you've worked at, all the products, you spent a lot of time over in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco, in America. How did you find that versus the UK?
I think it's funny because I'm I graduated college, and I think you graduate in the summer or you finish college in the summer, university, sorry, and I think I did one
You can
internship
tell
and
that
then
you've been in America for too long if you're saying college instead of
yeah, I
university.
know, man, it's crazy. I really hate myself for that. But yeah, I think in my third year of university is when I really ramped up on um, entrepreneurship and we started a couple companies, and I, and that's when I really started to get the startup bug, and I felt like I wanted to work for a tech startup. Bearing in mind, it's like 2015, where apps are really hot as well. And my first, I remember, your third year, so you're trying to think of what I'm going to do next. And I think I did three things. I applied for an internship, a summer internship at Goldman Sachs, which was like, I felt like a reputable company. And this is going to be in London for the summer. And, if you do the summer internship, it's very likely you're going to turn into a full-time role. And then I also applied for a couple other British startups at the time. I think I applied for Shazam, which was the one that I felt like would be the coolest to work at because I'm big into music, big into apps, and they were like the hottest British UK startup at the time, in my opinion. 2015, I think this was, or 2014 maybe. And then I applied for the Silicon Valley internship program because a friend, one of my closest friends, was working for an American startup at the time as an iOS developer, and he would go to America once a month while still doing his degree. And he let me know about this program. So I think like those are the three kind of shots I took, and I got I got the internship secured. I got into the Silicon Valley internship program, which was like the biggest opportunity at that point. I was like, "Whoa, okay, cool." And I remember I went to interview at Shazam, and I remember just talking to some of the grads there or the people that were working there, and I just got the vibe like there wasn't much innovation happening, and also just from a compensation perspective, it's like I was looking at how all the Silicon Valley companies or American startups. Oh, damn! Sorry, can you hear that? There's thunder going off in the background. Sorry, I'm just gonna shut my window. My
No
bad.
problem.
So yeah, there was all these really cool American companies, Facebook, Airbnb, Snapchat, and I was looking at their grad salaries at the time, which is if you secured a grad offer, you would get paid like a minimum $100,000 salary, but then also like a 50K signing on bonus. And then I was looking at Shazam and I was talking to the grads there, and they were saying how they were getting paid like £30,000, £24,000.
It's
And then I
crazy
was
when
looking
you
at
see
the
the difference. Like, obviously, I know, like, over there in those areas, they are more expensive, to live. But still, like, when you see the difference, you just think, Jesus, like, there's, people out there that I'm sure you might have come across people like this as well that will literally just get a role over there, earn as much as they can, live as cheaply as they can for like a few years, and then the amount that they've banked, and then they just go back to their own country, whether that's UK or somewhere else, and they'll do that because it's just versus saving for 10 to 15 years or more in the UK. You could just do it in less time over there.
exactly, and I think yeah, that was my first thing I noticed. Before I'd even moved to America, I noticed the numbers were just different, and then you realize that yeah, there's just more opportunity out there for tech, better funding, more ambition, it attracts better talent, and so by the time I'd gone to America, I was working under the Silicon Valley internship program, which I'd recommend to anyone studying in Europe. Um, I just it was a bit of a culture shock actually because I'd moved to San Francisco, and you expect like San Francisco, the Bay Area, you know of all the tech companies that are being built out there. I expected a really futuristic city almost, and I never forget my first experience landing in San Francisco. Funny enough, was for the Apple conference, the WWDC annual conference they do, the developer conference, and I was really underwhelmed by the city. Was just felt very archaic, like a lot of homeless people, not much technology was being used. Like I remember having to like, coming from the UK where you can use Apple Pay everywhere, there was a lot of cash only. The transport system was like using these really old school paper type card systems.
Okay, that's
And so
interesting.
honestly, I was actually really underwhelmed by the city itself. Um, but
Was that where all the companies were, or was that a little further away from
No,
or
this is
was it?
downtown San Francisco. Like, so you learn that San Francisco has a lot of problems, which have been well documented. And yeah, the companies, all the startups and companies are dotted like in very concentrated parts of San Francisco, but also Silicon Valley. I learned also that Silicon Valley was not where San Francisco was. Silicon Valley was definitely a more rural, um, and even probably more boring place for someone that's 21. It's really just buildings and residential spots. So I learned that San Francisco was probably the best place to be as a young person just moving to the Bay Area. But coming from London, the environment was very underwhelming. But in saying that, America as a whole has just been an amazing place to be. I've really enjoyed meeting, my American counterparts. There's so much ambition out here in America. The energy is just way different, especially when you're in tech or in entrepreneurship. The amount of opportunities that I've come across on that side of I'm back in the UK now, so on that side of the river was pond, or whatever you want to call it, the ocean was just insurmountable. And one of the blessings of being in San Francisco and being in the center of, tech and entrepreneurship was just how normalized, how normalized greatness was, and just meeting so many young, ambitious people doing amazing things, running companies, solving really amazing, hard problems. And the culture was really around sharing, connecting, and not too much gatekeeping, which I found was appreciable. So yeah, I loved it. I definitely, it took me a while to find my place and my crowd in America, but once I had, I really, 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 really started to enjoy it. And I think that's kind of why I'm moving back there. I think it's still a better place to build a tech startup, I think, in an American city than the UK, than London anyway. Maybe if I was building a fintech startup, London might make more sense, but I just found I'm getting more bang for my buck out there.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so
And
yeah.
so the Silicon Valley internship program that you mentioned, what specifically is that? What does it do? Is it something like YC or is it something totally different?
Yeah, it's actually started by Michael Hughes, who's a British founder and he's the company I interned, Loop Up. He runs a company called Loop Up, and they're based in San Francisco. They have offices in London as well. And it's actually a non-profit, I believe, and it was started with the goal to bring back more entrepreneurship talent to the UK, to foster the spirit. That's to foster the Silicon Valley spirit in the UK. And the goal is that, hey, let's take some talented, technical graduates from the UK, and I think even it's open to the rest of Europe now, but it was focused most on UK graduates. Actually, I think it's still focused on UK graduates. And the idea is that the Silicon Valley internship program will connect you with startups in Silicon Valley and San Francisco. And you'd work there for a year, most likely as a software engineer, although there have been some product managers now. Um, and after that year, the goal is that you can now come back to the UK with a bit more of an awareness or education on how the startup ecosystem runs in the Bay Area, and hopefully maybe create your own startup in London, in the UK. But it's just really about offering more opportunities to UK graduates, really, and it's done for an internship. So it's nothing like YC. It's mostly focused on internship. But then there are entrepreneurial elements to the program, such as like monthly meetups with reputable entrepreneurs in the space from the UK and the US, monthly hackathons, and I'm pretty sure I did this program like almost 7 8 years ago now. So it's definitely been geared more towards, okay, how can we also facilitate um, our our people on the program to create their own thing as well. So, but it starts off as an internship, and it just the core of the program is you get to work for a fast growing Silicon Valley based startup, and they help you handle a lot of the stuff which is hard, which is mostly like immigration, visas, connecting with the startups, just helping you get straight to the interview, and accommodation as well for the first month, XYZ. So yeah, yeah, that program literally changed my life. And it was weird because I only heard about it, like I said, by chance, because it wasn't really well known at the time, and I probably still isn't that well known, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I feel like people that are in tech, a lot of people will have heard of YC and some other startups as well. I mean, incubators as well. Whereas, Silicon Valley internship program, I think the once you explain what it is, I think the concept of it will sound familiar to people. That are in tech. The idea of connecting people with some company over there. Sorting stuff out like visas, travel, that sort of stuff, and getting you over there for a job. But that particular organization, I don't think is that well known, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's not, it's, at the end of the day, YC is a global organization funding
Mm,
startups all over the world, billion-dollar startups, Airbnb. So you would hear of these, whereas Silicon Valley Internship Program is really focused on um, people at like, graduates. It's like a graduate type program. So it's not the same type of reach. And there are, and I think that's one thing I learned about in college as well, in university, sorry, is that there are so many opportunities for as a student, you have so many opportunities to like get involved with really cool programs, but you kind of have to be in the right crowds at the right time. And that's how I find myself in this game because my close friends, it's funny, like one of my closest friends, Tosin, he was this dude, like I said, he come from Nigeria as an international student, and we're all studying at the University of Nottingham. And he somehow managed to, by third year, was working for an American startup, and they would fly him out to New York once a month, and he was an iOS developer. And this type of stuff was unheard of, right? So I was like, okay. And he's the guy that would expose me to like the Silicon Valley internship program or like the Hack NY program, which was like a similar type of program based in New York. And then through him, I just realized there's just so many of these little programs focused on like helping people break into tech, and they're not really well known, but they're known if you if you're really grinding or if you're in the right circles.
yeah,
So
if
it's
you're in
really
the know,
important to,
kind of thing.
but they're not really hidden. They're not secret societies. Like you
No.
just one Google away and you see the apply button. So it's one, and this is me talking from like 8 to 7 years ago. All those programs still exist, and I can only imagine there's way more programs now. So um, if you're in college or university, definitely like look at what the top students in your compute in your course are doing, how they're getting opportunities. And another big thing I was doing a lot was going to hackathons as well, which is where a lot of the opportunities are coming from, right? And I think what drew me to America was I noticed that a lot of that stuff was coming from America, like even the idea of hackathons, um, you know, going to a building for 48 hours and building an idea from start to finish. Like a lot of this, I noticed that there was like a whole major league of hackathons going on in America between colleges, and it's just like wow, like so much opportunity out here. And so yeah, just to summarize, yeah, like a lot of these things are open to everyone. You just have to keep your eyes and ears open with social media, follow the right people. I'm always retweeting every year about the programs I've been on. Silicon Valley internship program. There's Interact, Hack NY. There's even another one called Recurse Center in New York, and a lot of these things are available to anyone in the world. And yeah, these are life changes for someone trying to break into tech or someone trying to work in America, XYZ. So yeah, amazing.
Oh yeah, like what I will say is that anyone listening that's looking to look at some of these programs, uh, I, I I'm sure you may have come across it or heard of it. Be careful. There might be scams out there, especially if they are flying you over or doing something like this, and they might potentially ask for certain details, private details, or some money upfront to help whatever costs that they're going to say that they have. So I'm sure with this sort of space there probably are some scams as well. So obviously just do a bit of research, be diligent, and but yeah, it is good advice. See what other people are doing, especially if you're at university, if they're getting internships, and like you're saying, like that guy that's getting flown out multiple times in a year to Silicon Valley at their cost, and he's still at university as an iOS developer. It's a pretty crazy thing. Pretty, I would say still unheard of to most university students, if you see people that are like, be willing to approach them. They might say they don't want to talk to you and they might not give you advice, but I feel like if you pose it in a way that you're basically impressed and intrigued, most people want to talk about themselves anyway, so they'll probably give you more advice than you probably think they would. So yeah, definitely, reach out, talk to the people, and obviously, see what they have to say. So look, one thing I want to ask is, what advice, because after doing all of this, what advice would you give to someone that's going through university, doing some sort of technical degree like computer science, and wants to get into the startup field? Like, what advice would you give to them?
That's a really great question, and I think obviously advice really depends on the context of your situation. And I think the number one thing I always say is, and I don't know, someone else also told me this, and I think you have to use the cards you've been dealt to play the current game you're in. And I think when you're in university, you have a unique set of cards where you don't have much money, but you have a lot of time and you have access to a lot of talent, right? A lot of hustlers. So I would definitely say if you're trying to break into the startup game or in tech in university, I would definitely say just use the opportunities you have, right? You have a lot of opportunities to build products for students, right? Which is a unique set of people, right? That a lot of people outside of university, a lot of people outside of university want to build products for students, but you are actually a student. You talk to students every day. You are surrounded by talented designers or people that can learn how to design, people that can learn how to build apps, build products, and you have a way more free time in your hands than you would when you're working 9 to 5. So if you want to break into tech, you could just break. You don't have to ask for permission. You can start building stuff for your favorite universe, for your students, or for yourself, for your friends, or for societies, or for your university itself. We actually used to build we used to we I think we initially built a game and then we just used to post it all over our university forum boards, and then we built a social app for other students, and then we used to build literally like the apps for our university students where like we got into deals with like our students union and just built freshers week apps and XYZ, right? And that's the opportunities we had. And I'm sure if you're in university, you have similar opportunities. You have students, you have societies that need websites, you have entrepreneurs at your university that need apps, you have ideas, problems that you can solve, and I'll start there. Then the second thing is the internships. Obviously, it's like internships are focused on students. You're a student, apply to internships, and you have to be proactive and unconventional. Do not rely too much on job boards and job sites. We live in a time where you can literally message recruiters, founders directly, right? And I'd say I would use that to your maximum ability. If there's a company I think is cool that I want to work for, I would message the founders directly on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or email them or DM them on Instagram. And every founder I know will probably respect you for that more than if you just submitted your CV and your application to like a random job site. So focus on getting your internship as soon as possible just to get the real world experience, but don't wait for permission to enter the scene. You are the scene, right? If you have a skill, if you have internet, solve problems for yourself, publish them, put them out there. And yeah, don't ask for too much permission, but just focus on the opportunities you have. And when you're at university, you have so much opportunity, I think, even more than you do when you leave. And
Yeah,
if you're trying to
people
break,
don't
yeah,
take advantage
100%,
of it. It's one of the things you
100%.
look back on, even if you took advantage of it or you think you did. You look back and you think, one, the time, the 3 4 years you got
Yes.
there, like the amount of days and potential things that you could have done there is crazy when you think about it. And when you don't really, for most people, don't need to be working, and have bills to pay, mortgages, family support, etc., etc. And then also the network as well, the different societies that are available that you can just go to, and nobody will really bat an eyelid
Mhm.
that you've gone to this or that society. Like, it's just fine. Okay, you're part of the university. You got a uni card. That's fine. Come in.
Mhm, 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 mhm. Exactly. Because I think a lot of universities even have entrepreneurship centers where they
Mm.
support you if you start a business. We leverage that as well. And they just helped us with like I don't even remember. I think it just gave us some mentorship, even exposed us to other opportunities and other things we could apply for as well. So yeah, like lean on your university initially. There's enough there to help you break into the next stage, right? And if you can get an internship, that's a bonus. Once you have an internship, you're in the scene. Like, yeah, you're in. So you're only trying to get your first job, your first gig, your first contract, your first role.
Yeah, the hardest part is, the first one. It's like, when you're
Exactly.
going to university in the UK, the main thing they're focusing on is college. When you're going to college, the main thing they're focusing on is high school. When you go into high school, the main thing they focus on is primary school. When you got your first job, the first thing they're going to focus on, or when you gain your first job, I should say, the main thing they're going to focus on is your university. Maybe if you have some other
Mhm.
experience, but once you've got one job or definitely two jobs, under your belt, if you have, let's say, a first class honors degree versus having a 2-1, 2-2, or a pass at university, they're not really going to care. Like, they'll just see, okay, you've got a degree, computer science, and then you've worked at these two companies for X amount of years doing this type of work, yes or no. Like, it'll be more about that. So yeah, the hardest part is always the first step within that new field or that new sort of journey that you're in. But once you do get going, people don't really care about the past so much unless
Mhm.
there's something really checkered in there, something that's really bad, potentially. But for most people that's not the case. So like, if you've just graduated and maybe you didn't get the grade that you didn't want, don't be that disheartened by it. Once you get
Mhm.
your first job, and I think people aren't going to be that fussed, even if for your first job, and you can alleviate that by, if you're a programmer, start creating a portfolio on GitHub, put stuff out there, release it, maybe create some YouTube videos, whatever it is, find your jam, release content and free apps, YouTube videos on programming, do some hackathons, whatever it is, you end up getting the job. So that's
Mhm.
obviously probably the best thing for you. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's pretty much all the questions I've got around your career and what you've been doing. Really interesting stuff. What I always do before we wrap up is ask a bunch of rapid fire fun questions. Are you ready for those?
Let's go.
Okay, so the first one, I think it's going to be very relevant for someone in your position, and it's going to be: would you rather run a 10-person company or a 1,000-person company, and what and why? Because you've been in the startup scene, it's something that you probably thought about and have actually pursued in doing.
Right now, a 10-person company because I haven't done that before, and I feel like I've I've worked in a 1,000 plus company and I've worked in a smaller company. And I think the smaller the company, I just feel the more enjoyable it is.
Oh no,
It's like almost like a family.
one second. Like, I meant, like, would you, in terms of running it? So, let's say if you was your own company, would you rather it be a 10-person company size wise or a 1,000-person company? So you're a founder or a co-founder, you're CEO. If you had a choice, would you rather have your own small, let's say, little 10-person outfit, and things are going great, or would you like to be more global with a 1,000-person company? That's what I meant.
That's a tricky question, you know. I would choose 1,000, I guess. I guess that means the company has reached product market fit, it's more successful, solving a problem on a wider scale. Yeah, 1,000 person. Let's go.
Yeah, because there's only so far you can get with 10 people. Like, I know
Mhm.
some people do get crazy far with just a few, but you're right. Like, if you're going to reach, let's say, 100 million users, potentially with 10 million monthly or daily active users, whatever it is, like, you're probably not
Mhm.
going to do that with 10 people. Like, you're going to have to scale up, and even if that isn't scaling up of, okay, 10 permanent employees, might be 50 permanent, but then 100 contractors, you still 150 employees or 150 people that you're managing on some capacity.
Mhm.
So, would you rather have 5 million up front, and let's call it pounds, or 500,000 a year for the rest of your life, and why?
Oh, 500,000, yeah, for the rest of your life. Um, I think that's in terms of stability, in terms of the overall amount you're going to receive. I think with 500,000 for the rest of my life, I could retire easily. 5 million, you still have to figure out to manage that. You would have to, even if you can probably make how much of 5 million a year easily. Yeah, it wouldn't be up to 500,000. So yeah, I'll say 500,000 for the rest of my life. I'd assume I'm going to live till I'm 70. So that's at least $35 million or pounds. I think that'll be an easy decision.
Yeah, I mean, I get all sorts of different, answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the other thing with 500,000 a year is, especially if you're in the startup scene, you can do a bunch of things, make mistakes, and it's not that big of a deal. Like, next year you're gonna get another 500,000, so you could literally for 2 3 years go ham, go crazy on. So let's say if it's the latest technology, and it turns out that technology just plummets and nobody's interested in it anymore, it's not the end of the world. Whereas if you
Yes.
have 5 million, you might kind of be tempted to plug it all in. And once you plug it all
Yep.
in, you might get those returns, but if you don't, that's it, done.
Yeah. I think it's more of the psychology of having knowing you have 500,000 every year versus having 5 million at once. I think psychologically having a steady amount every year is just a better place to operate from.
Oh yeah. And what's your favorite board game, video game, and movie?
My favorite board game is chess. Video game is Gears of War.
First
That's
one?
my favorite video game of first. Say that again.
I was saying the first Gears of War or one of the others.
Oh, right, the first. Oh, that's a good. Probably the first one, man.
First one.
Good times.
Yeah, when
And
that came out,
did you
those
play
cover
that?
yeah, yeah, I played,
Oh, damn.
all of them. Like the cover
Yes,
mechanics in that game when that came out, and obviously the chainsaw as well. It just felt so
hundred
good.
percent, 100%, man. Nah, best one of my best memories was playing Gears of War with friends and random strangers online. Good times, man. I could still play that game. It's unfortunate, but if I could, I would still play that game today. Um, Great story as well. Great characters. And then movie, was that movie you said?
Yeah, favorite movie.
I'm probably gonna say The Prestige,
Ooh,
but a
that's a
lot of
good
Christopher
choice.
Nolan movies got up there. Yeah, Prestige. I think The Prestige is the first movie I watched where I was like, damn, who is this Christopher Nolan guy?
Did you watch it back
Um,
in the day when it came out, or was it a little later on?
I think I watched it in like probably like 3 or 4 years after it came out. I think it was 2011.
Okay, so not too long after that. So,
Yeah,
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 but obviously by then he had already done The Dark Knight, so he
yeah, he
was
did. Yeah,
already, the because pre The Dark Knight, he was like the guy that did great movies, but not many people knew. But after
yes,
'08 with The Dark Knight, it became like, okay, he's the man, and now
yes,
everyone knows him. And like now, when a
yes,
movie of his comes out, it's such an event. It is.
yes,
It's just
yes,
insane. Like I think even more of an event than Ridley Scott, Martin Scorsese. Obviously, George Lucas not making movies, anymore right now. But even more of an event and kind of fanatical in a different way than Star Wars and Marvel fans get. It's almost
oh yeah,
godlike. It's
yeah, like that.
crazy. I do love his movies, though. I mean, he's my favorite director of all time. But yeah, like
Yes,
the vibe around his movies is just totally different.
yes. So wait, what's your favorite movie of all time?
Ooh, favorite movie of all time. There's so like the thing with those sort of questions is you want to say one, then like 10 minutes later you think, oh, I love this one. If I
Yeah,
had to say, I would cheat and say the Dark. No, no, I mean the Dark Knight trilogy. If I had to,
yes,
I would cheat and I'll say that because I like all three. I feel like the Dark Knight overshadows the other two, partly because of Heath Ledger's death. Not that his performance wasn't amazing, but I feel like because of that event, it got
yes,
hyped up more. It's kind of thing you've got to like it. It's like Forrest
100%.
Gump. I've never met anyone that doesn't like Forrest Gump, and I'm
Hmm.
like, there must be people out there that didn't genuinely internally enjoy the movie, but it just
Hmm.
happens to be something that you have to like apparently.
Hmm.
And
Hmm. Hmm.
this kind of thing, the thing with Dark Knight, but it is an amazing movie. But then you go back to Batman Begins, and that's where he started it all. And
I really loved Batman Begins.
yeah, so good. And he did that when Marvel wasn't a thing. Obviously, they had done some Spider-Man movies and X-Men. I think Fantastic Four maybe at that point, but it was still a joke. Like I remember before Christopher Nolan came along with, I would say, the Dark Knight mainly. Comic book movies was considered a joke for kids. Like it
Yeah.
was not something that serious adults with jobs, openly enjoyed. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was for kids, and then it went from being okay, this is a good comic book movie to this is a good movie period, and this competes and beats other regular movies. Obviously, now it's commonplace that you get comic book movies and people love them. But back then, like people now will wear T-shirts with Superman logo, with the Batman logo, with Captain America's shield, or some like the
Mm-hmm.
Iron Man core or anything like that, and it's considered acceptable and
Hmm.
cool. But back pre '08, if you was wearing some sort of nerdy T-shirt like that, like if people didn't make fun of you to your face, they probably did behind your back.
100%, man. A lot of shit shifted, and I feel like, yeah, I think that's also partially great. You have to, you kind of have to give the respect to the Avengers thing. Like, the first Iron Man movie, I think, really opened up superhero films.
That did as well, yeah.
I remember watching that, like thinking, damn. But yeah, Dark Knight was special, man. 100%.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of special because there was just three movies and that was it. Like it wasn't.
Yeah.
Whereas with Marvel, there must be more than 20 movies by now.
Oh,
Like
100%.
so many of them blend together. Like I remember when Marvel movies were one character, maybe with the odd side character, but now each
Yes.
movie is basically a mini Avengers movie. Like at this
Yes.
point.
Yes. Yes.
It's nice to have the crossover with characters, but they just all feel so similar. They just feel
Mm,
which one am I watching or which movie did this happen in? Whereas with the Dark Knight
mm,
trilogy, you knock it. There were these three movies. They had their own unique style and take to it, and that was it. There was no spin-offs. There was no nothing. It was solid, from start to
mm,
finish, and he ended it. Like he had the opportunity
mm.
to do so many more. Warner Brothers, I remember reading, basically offered him the keys to the kingdom after the Dark Knight Rises. They said to him, he did
Yes.
so well with it, the trilogy. You can basically, be head of DC, and he flat
Yes.
out said no. He's like, I don't want to do it. He's like, I've done my free. End of.
Nice. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
You have
but
to
yeah,
know when to call it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Whereas a lot of people, they'll just do another one, another movie, another movie, another movie, and you just see that again and again and again. Whereas he just did just say, okay, I'm leaving it at that, and then I'm gonna make these other kind of like random kind of movies. Oppenheimer, Dunkirk, Interstellar. Like they're just so different, but it feels like they're probably movies, or I guarantee you the movies that he actually wants to make and he actually
Yes.
feels excited about. Not that, okay, I've
Yes.
got a contract to do five more superhero movies or five more sci-fi
Yes.
movies.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So because you said you're a video gamer, what video game are you looking forward to?
So, admittedly, I don't get to play as much games anymore, and it's funny. I even bought a PlayStation 5 and didn't put many hours into it. But honestly, the game I'm always going to look forward to is the next GTA. Like, that's always a moment. So
We're
I've
gonna be
heard this.
feels like we're gonna be waiting a while.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm definitely going to pay close attention to whenever that does come out. Like,
Yeah.
that game always changes everything every time it comes out. So yeah, GTA 6, I think we're waiting for. Yeah,
Yes, I mean, 10 years ago they released
exactly.
GTA 5, PS3,
Yes.
then they remastered it for PS4, and then PS. Like it spanned
Fact,
three
exactly. It's
generations.
crazy. It's
It's
crazy.
it's insane, and it's still popular today.
Oh
Like
hell yeah.
people still love it. It's still making a ridiculous amount of money as well. Like
Yeah.
the amount of money that's made, like it's last I checked, which was a good while ago, it had made north of $10 billion in total revenue, and
100%.
you compare that to movies, it I'm pretty sure it's made more revenue than the top five movies of all time, and that's pretty
Oh,
insane
100%.
when you think about it. And it's still going.
100%. I think gaming overall is just a sector that is like a bottomless pit. It's like unlimitless. It's limitless what's possible with gaming in terms of revenue, in terms of experiences. So yeah, it's no, and there's nothing like GTA, you know. So I'm always gonna be looking for. In fact, Rockstar in general, like Red Dead Redemption, GTA, always
Yeah.
really two solid games that come out when they do.
Yeah, whatever they do, they always do well. Obviously, they haven't done a
Yeah.
Max Payne in ages. They were doing
Yes.
their, the table tennis game that originally started off as an experiment
Oh
and
yeah, I
became like
remember that.
popular in their own right. Yeah, but whatever Rockstar does, they do it well, and I feel like you get bang for buck with their games. Like the fact that their games will be the same. Obviously, it's at the top of the price point, but it'll be the same as other games. And the amount of hours you'll get from single player, and then if nowadays with GTA 5 online, like the amount of hours you can get with online as well, if you want to go down that route, is insane. Hopefully, they keep that with GTA 6. I feel like they will, but you see a lot of games now where they just put the single player to the side and they don't focus on it now,
Hmm,
and they're just
hmm,
focusing on the multiplayer because that's where the money is.
hmm, hmm.
So
Yeah.
final question. It's a two-parter. Does money buy you happiness, and what does a good life mean to you?
Um, Money definitely doesn't buy you happiness, but if you, well, it can help. I think if you have the basics of life that you don't have to worry about, it can allow you to be happier. But no, I don't think money buys you happiness. And then the second thing was, what was the second question? Sorry.
What does a good life mean to you?
A good life means to me, what does a good life mean to me? This is a good life. I think being able to wake up every day with some excitement or looking forward to something every day or looking forward to what is a good life? That's a good question. A good life is just one where you get to share experiences with people that you love and do things you that you care about, really. Do things that might have meaning towards you. So I think for me, a good life would just be um, I'm having a good life. That's what I know. Good life is having my family around me, people I love, getting to travel with my girlfriend every now and then, watch good shows, have funny moments, and hopefully get back into the startup game and build a company and a culture that I care about, really. So yeah,
Yeah, sometimes
yeah,
it's the small,
it's
simple stuff. Like I like that you
definitely
mentioned the
simple.
TV show thing. Sometimes you watch a TV show or even a movie, but TV show, especially when it can be long running over multiple years and multiple episodes and seasons, you just think that I'm enjoying this. Obviously, the difference between spending all your time just watching TV and just being on autopilot, going on Netflix when you go home and just watching whatever seems the least boring to you. I feel like a lot of people do that, but just a
Yes.
good TV show, enjoying that and then just really absorbing it and relaxing can be very beautiful. Just the way going on a walk in nature can in its own right as well. Just being present and taking it for what it is and not expecting more from it and then just being grateful if you do get a bit more from it as well.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, I think happiness is really when your expectations are being met or exceeded,
Mm.
which means you can lower your expectations to be happier, or you can meet your expectations. And it is really one that allows you to, absorb the present moment, one where you're not too regretful about the past, and you're not too anxious about the future. So yeah, that's why you get to enjoy the little things more, and you realize. I think a good life is when you realize that you're literally living a good life. It's what you make of it, right? It's the present moments, all we have.
Oh yeah, it's one of those. I think it's also one of those things that as you get older, you do begin to appreciate and understand a bit more. When you're 18, 20, 22 years old, your approach to life and your outlook on life is very different to when you're 30. And obviously, beyond, I can't comment on, I'm 31, but beyond that, but I can see where my outlook is going and my appreciation of life is going is the other smaller stuff. And it's like, um I think I mentioned it before we hit record, but I'm in the process of moving, of rearranging my house, upstairs, and doing
Yes.
a bunch of DIY stuff as well. And sometimes I'll stand there and thinking there's so much to do, but then other
Yes.
times I just think I've got a roof over my head, nice house, married, got
Yes.
kids, you know,
Yes.
and got money to be able to go and buy this item of furniture, go and buy this tool, whatever it is. Now enjoy that. Okay, maybe my office right now it isn't fully set, but just take one day as it happens. Today I've set this particular thing up. Tomorrow I'll do a few more, but don't be so strict with yourself that you just forget to enjoy you know what you actually have. It's like I'm sitting in my office right now and I'm looking around. It's like in front of me I've got a 65-inch TV on the wall. I've got a monitor on the wall in the corner for my computer and my laptop, and like there was another monitor, an ultra wide one that I'm putting on the wall as well. And in like uh, I've had a few issues trying to put it on the wall due to the anchors, and I was meant to get that solved, and then the solution didn't end up working out. Instead of getting upset about that, I've said to myself, okay, it is what it is. I'm just going to whack it on the stand temporarily. I'll revisit it in a week or two, and I'll get that sorted. But like, be happy that I've got everything, and just acknowledge that, and just be present in the moment, because
Oh,
there's
100%.
always going to be stuff to do. Even if I get this office set, or when I do, there'll be something else, then there'll be something else, then there'll be something else.
Yeah, there you go. You've learned it, man. And I feel like that's what it's about. Just find that right balance between accepting what needs to be done and just doing what you can do and enjoying it.
Yeah, I feel like before we wrap up, it's life's akin to British weather. When you get the sunshine, enjoy it.
Facts.
Yeah, like when people look at what they want life to be, I feel like they want it to be, you know, like in San Francisco and Silicon Valley. Was the weather always good there? I'm assuming it was, wasn't it? Is that true?
Funny enough, no.
No.
Just the San Francisco specifically has a pretty shitty microclimate where it
Oh,
can always be a bit colder than other parts of the bay, and rains every now and then. So it's not the best weather, but it's definitely better than London. Trust me.
okay. What about Silicon Valley then? Is it always sunny there, or?
Yeah, it's warmer there, 100%. You never really need a really big jacket,
Yeah.
but
So
could also get a bit cold as well. It's
okay, a
hard.
bit, yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
like LA where it's always warm.
yeah. Okay, so LA. So I feel like a lot of people, think of the ideal life to be like LA, where it's always gonna be
Yes,
sun shining, but it is more like Britain,
yes.
where you're gonna probably get a lot of rain, a lot of snow, a lot of bad days. But those good days, when you get the sun, and I know when you're younger, whether that's literally speaking, when the sun comes out, enjoy that, go for a picnic, barbecue, go for a walk, whatever it is. Because I remember when I used to be younger, probably 5 to 10 years ago, I used to always be in the mode of either work or I'm staying inside, to do other stuff that I prefer doing inside. But now I'm like, okay, if I can, bang out a barbecue, like unfortunately we didn't get many, this year because the weather wasn't the best. But like,
Yes.
if I can, you know, even if I have other plans, if they can be rearranged or whatever it is, make the most of that. Like that's how life is. It's basically like British weather. Make the most of that little bit of sunshine. Because trust me, you're going to get
Facts.
to 70, 80 and realize there wasn't that much sunshine and you should have made the most of it. Instead of hoping for 50 degrees, just be happy you get 25.
Oh yeah, and you realize you actually have to make the most of the rain as well, because if it rains
Yes.
9 months out of 12, that is actually life, and you have to look at what you can do with the rain.
Yeah, that's so true. Like there'll be times where it'll be raining, but then I'll be sitting inside in the warmth, and you'll feel nice and cozy. And that's the way to approach life. You'd be like, okay, things right now aren't the way I want them to be, but what is good right now? What can be good right now? Find that and get that out of it, and that will push you and propel you through. If not the bad times, the times where it's not where you want it to be. Because I feel like there's a lot of times in between where because it's not bad. You can't really have something to blame, but it's not good, so you're not enjoying it as much. It's kind of just I would say meh. It's just there. It's just neutral.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, man. Oh, perfect.
So, yep, that's it for today's episode of FireDev. Dipo, I want to thank you for jumping on the podcast today. Really enjoyed speaking to yourself and, obviously the different companies you worked at, your experience as a, startup founder and just working for startups and the advice that you've given, doing consultancy and, just startups in general. So, yeah, thank you very much, Dipo, for coming on.
Oh, thank you. Honestly, it's been a pleasure to be here for Han. Looking forward to this and future episodes.
Oh yeah, it won't be long till this airs, and I think the audience is gonna really like this one. So I just want to thank everyone for listening to this episode of FireDev, and I'll see you in next week's episode. Bye bye.
Take care.